Good afternoon. We're going to get started here in just a couple of minutes. We'll just allow a minute or two for other people to join. We'll be right back. Hi there, I'm Ron Vanderwees. I'm the Program Director of the Vehicle Technology Center. We are embarking on a clustering initiative to create a collaborative community of the heavy vehicle and equipment manufacturers in Manitoba. And as a part of this, as a part of what we're trying to do, we're trying to create opportunities for the industry to meet and learn about leading technologies that can become important to heavy vehicle and equipment manufacturing and the uniqueness of that manufacturing. We're also about attempting to find partnerships for companies that are looking at developing a technology, and perhaps there's others in their industry that are interested in sharing knowledge and perhaps co-developing a technology. And we're also about trying to work between industry and academia in order to broker projects from industry into academia in order to better align the research being done at the academic institutions, as well as have a direct line of communication with companies so that we can coexist together and support each other in this ecosystem. The VTC have a couple of upcoming technology webinars. Stay tuned to our website at vtci.ca. We will have some information there in regards to upcoming events. Our new website should be up and running in about 2 weeks' time, and that's a great place to go to. Number one, take a look at things that we've done in the past and information that we've posted that's specifically suited to heavy vehicle and equipment manufacturing, as well as to look at past webinars. We've got recordings of past webinars that will be available through that site. Also, you can reach some of our past recordings on virtual production planning technology and some interesting insights in heavy vehicle electrification. Those webinars are posted on our YouTube page. What you have to do is go to YouTube and search for Manitoba HEV, Heavy Equipment Vehicle Cluster, and it'll take you to the page that I'll show on the next slide. And yeah, that's where we're going to post all our videos, including this one. When it's concluded, we will be posting this on our website as well, or on our YouTube channel as well. If you have been receiving emails from the VTC and wish to be removed from our list, please feel free to contact me at the email address at the bottom of the slide, and I would be happy to take you off if you find that the types of things that we're doing and the discussions that we're hosting are not relevant to what you want to do. There's a look at our YouTube page. Again, just get onto YouTube and using the search feature in YouTube, search for Manitoba HEV Cluster. It'll take you to this page where all of our previous webinars will be recorded. We have some upcoming events. In January, we're hosting a webinar on web-connected tools. These are tools that actually connect to the Wi-Fi in-house and collect data on usage, regulate which user can use tools, can basically ensure that SOPs are followed directly by GPS positioning of the tool on wheel nuts to make sure you're doing a start pattern and things like that, and it will lock out if you're not following the right procedures. That will be hosted by Applefast in Winnipeg. Very, very fascinating stuff. We're hoping that you can join us. Some information will be coming out on that in the first week of January. We're also open to hosting webinars on any technology subjects that are of interest to our industry. So if you have, hey, it would be great if we could learn something about a specific subject, feel free to contact me. And I can certainly hunt down somebody that's an expert in that technology and hopefully be able to present to the group. And also, as I said earlier, stay tuned to our website, vtci.ca, for the latest webinars. We're going to be planning in 2021 late or 2022 some technology mission trips where we're going to take some people, take a group of people from the Manitoba heavy vehicle manufacturing community to places in the world that have advanced technology that we should be having on our radar and we should be looking at in order to learn and bring that knowledge back to Manitoba. So if you're interested in being a part of those things, stay tuned to our website. There'll be emails going out in regards to events and trips that we have planned that hopefully you'll be able to take part in. So the agenda for today is we have a great presentation on user wearable technology from the good folks at Upskill. We're going to do some introductions and then we're going to pass it over to the group from Upskill who are going to basically present the case for user wearable technologies. It's really interesting because that technology is actually closer than you think it is. They're going to do a couple of demonstrations for us. Then there'll be a little bit of discussion. Then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. If you could, please submit your questions via the chat feature or the Q&A feature on Zoom. And we would be pleased to have the panel from Upskill to answer those questions. And we are going to finish at 3:30 sharp so that we can get back to the things that we have to do. So what led us to this webinar? During my meetings with some of the leaders in heavy equipment and vehicle manufacturing sector, a common issue came up was employee training. Each employee within many of our facilities is tasked with an extended line move worth of work requiring references to drawings or SOPs or electrical pinout locations, torques, and other information on other critical procedures that they have to follow. In contrast, if you look at a light automotive plant, workers have about a 3-minute task to learn, which is repeated about 130 times per shift, requiring very little information to reference to perform their task accurately. Each time an employee steps away from their work to reference information, you can essentially classify their time as non-value added to the product. Question is, how can we make critical production information available to an employee without them taking their hands off their work? In another scenario, many of us ship and sell our products all over the world, and we have to provide product support. What if we could connect to remote technicians to see what they see and guide them through repair procedures right from our desk? What if we could push information to their heads-up display as a long-distance discussion is taking place? The Vehicle Technology Center has hosted a series of webinars about future technologies that could impact our unique industry in the near future. When I was researching user wearable technologies, I was surprised to learn that our presenter today, Upskill, has already developed platforms used by Boeing and other major companies to assist their production employees as well as provide remote service. Honestly, this augmented or assisted reality technology is closer and less expensive than you might think. This could be a powerful tool to increasing production efficiency and providing instantaneous service support. Our presenters from Upskill will take us through a presentation of their technologies. They'll perform 2 live demonstrations. One is a production scenario, one is a product service scenario, and then they'll be available for Q&A at the end, as I said earlier. We're going to end at 3:30 sharp. And as I said, a video of the webinar is going to be posted to our YouTube page. So if you have coworkers or anybody else that are interested in learning about this but weren't able to attend, feel free to direct them to our YouTube page. So in introduction to our presenters from Upskill, we have Adam Wooderson. He's the head of sales at Upskill. He leads the sales team and brings 14 years of experience, leveraging high-tech solutions to solve complex challenges in both engineering and customer service roles. He's been with Upskill for 4 years and partnering with enterprises to deploy wearable technology and connected worker software to increase productivity, improve quality, and enable remote work across a variety of industries. Now, I was going to have a moment of silence for Adam because the Dallas Cowboys got beat up by the Baltimore Ravens, and Adam's from Texas, and I figured he'd be a Dallas fan, but he's a Houston Texan fan, so we don't have to have a moment of silence. We have Johnny Johnson with us, who's the Director of Solution Strategy. Johnny has supported a number of Fortune 500 companies in their development of Skylight, which is the driving force behind the user wearable technology, and wearable devices over the last 6 years at Upskill. His breadth of knowledge across industries and use cases, combined with his software engineering background, enable him to effectively and efficiently advise customers on scoping, development, and deployment of enterprise-grade wearable solutions using Skylight to solve real problems. His focus on the customer journey from initial engagement with Upskill through a production rollout provides customers a clear and effective path to optimize their return on investment of wearable technology. And during the Q&A session, we're going to be joined by Jessica Martin, who's the head of marketing of Upskill, and she'll be a part of the panel answering the Q&A at the end. So with that, I am going to pass it to Adam Wooderson, who's going to take control of this and teach us about assisted or augmented reality.
Great, thank you, Ron. Awesome introduction. I mean, I appreciate the jab about the Cowboys, but like I said, I'm a Texas fan. They're having a terrible season, so we probably should have a moment of silence for them as well. But appreciate the introduction and really excited to be here talking with everyone today. Ron, can you just give me a thumbs up that you all can see the slides to make sure everything looks good? Thank you, sir. So yeah, like Ron said, we work today with a variety of industries, including automotive suppliers, aerospace manufacturers and their suppliers. So we wanted to approach this from your perspective, from the industry perspective, and kind of start from a place of where, what are the challenges that you might be facing? What are the trends in the automotive industry at large, inclusive of heavy equipment and vehicles? And thinking of those, what are some practical applications for assisted reality or augmented reality using wearables in your space? So we'll kind of take that approach of kind of a top level view working down to the specific use cases that we can support with our software, which is Skylight. And then like Ron said, we're going to jump into some demos. So I'm going to demonstrate the remote video assistance from a pair of Vuzix M400 smart glasses using our software. And then Johnny is going to take over and do a couple of quick demos showing a combination of things like work instructions, digital inspection, and even complex assembly. So I'll go ahead and dive in. And like I mentioned, I wanted to kind of start from sort of why are we even here talking to you all? Why did Ron invite us? And he did a great preamble, great setup. If we think of it from a macro perspective, like again, across automotive, and this applies to aerospace as well, we're definitely in a period of change and disruption. A lot of it driven by smaller technologies like our cell phones and components that power those cell phones that we then want to access in the vehicles. But regardless of whether whether you all are accommodating changes in your production process to accommodate new tech for your customers or to accommodate changes in the production or manufacturing process itself to make way for new parts from your suppliers, or just for continuous improvement, there's definitely a lot of flux right now, a lot of changes, a lot of new technology. And so that is sort of on top of just your normal day-to-day challenges of driving productivity, providing high quality, and bringing on new people that are competent and get up to speed quickly. So this particular time, I think we have that extra challenge of dealing with all this new technology on top of our normal jobs. And so if we look a little further and look at some specific trends, again, this sort of across auto in general, but I think a lot of this applies to your particular companies in Manitoba. But trends like electric vehicle and connected vehicles, especially adding different systems into the vehicles that weren't there before, and having to accommodate not just the manufacturing but the service and the testing of those. So that in turn drives changes in the manufacturing process. And so now you're needing to train people in a different manner or update your source materials and then get those back out to your operators or your trainees. I know with auto, maybe consumer auto in general, there's a lot more customization that's available. And so we just have a higher variety of bill of materials, higher complexity and higher variability ways to build things. And of course, you have to do all of that while keeping up with production demand. And I think those top 4 bullets really drive the challenge of the last 2 bullets here, which are 1, filling your skills gap. And so I think across auto and heavy equipment vehicle industries, like we see in many others, like aerospace and even things like pharmaceuticals, there is sort of a rolling window that we've seen of a lot of the skilled workers retiring out in the past, like 3, 4, 5 years, looking out into the next 5, 6, 7 years. So we have to deal with closing that skills gap and transferring the knowledge from your 20, 30-year veterans to the new people that are coming on board in the next couple of years. And do all of that while still driving costs down and maintaining high quality. And so these are the things that we're trying to help our customers with. That's why our platform exists, is really to help workers be more efficient and do their jobs with higher quality, more productivity, that type of thing. So why specifically can AR wearables be valuable to you all? Well, there's a few reasons. And again, if you kind of frame it or think about it in the things that we've just been talking about, how do we deal with all of these changing materials or processes? Well, AR and wearables can help with that because you can have a more kind of nimble way to accommodate a wider variety of SOPs or instruction sets. You now have a mechanism that you can use to deliver these materials to your people at their point of need, right? And like Ron mentioned, if we can reduce wasted motion, if we can reduce trips back and forth to the workbench or trips to the filing cabinet to get the binder with the instructions, we can help not just with productivity, but with quality as well. And honestly, with the the workers, just job satisfaction and performance. So that's kind of specifically how AR and wearables can start to help, providing digital information to your people when and where they need it. And if we do it on smart glasses, it also has the extra benefit of being hands-free. So they can see it in their line of sight when and where they need it. They can keep their hands on the machines or on the tools. And so that allows you to alleviate some of the more manual processes by kind of closing the gap between the information they need and the job that they're actually doing. And a lot of this, as we talk through specific use cases, we're mainly looking at it from the practical perspective, right? So if we talk about complex assembly, we're talking about your workers actually assembling something on the job in production. But you can also use this methodology and these materials to provide more practical training and onboarding. And so it kind of halfway down that slide, it is more difficult now to train somebody up in the classroom and then just send them out to the line, right? So these tools could be used to provide a faster ramp in that onboarding cycle and get your people to quality faster and more confidently. In expanding that even further, if you have the ability to connect this wearable and this software to your enterprise systems directly, that is also a huge value because now you can scale this up more efficiently. Now you can basically have an integrated system that's not siloed so that you don't have to move things from one to another manually. If you make changes to the source material in your MES, for example, if you're integrated, then those changes will be inherited dynamically and you won't have to have another system that you have to manage in a manual way. So integration really adds a lot of value and extends the capabilities of this system with wearables and software. And then finally, bringing it all back to quality, it's not just about the productivity improvements, but if you have this detailed information at your fingertips, essentially, and if you have a digital way of doing an inspection or a quality check, and you can feed the results of that back to your managers or supervisors seamlessly and instantaneously, you might have a capability that's net new that you didn't have before, if you were doing it by paper or by physically walking someone over. So you can kind of close that quality loop tighter by digitally pulling that information back to people in your systems in a very fast way through the wearables and through software like Skylight. So these are just some kind of general ways that using a technology like this can start to help with the challenges that you face in production and in aftermarket service and things like that. So let's get a little more specific now and talk about the use cases themselves, or the more practical applications of this technology. So with complex assembly, we see this use case quite a bit. And as we've discussed with a few previous points, it lends itself well to leveraging wearables and AR software, because you have typically a very complex manual or mechanical instruction set that you're working with. You have to use very fine precision to place or connect or tighten or assemble things, right? And if you can, again, leverage up-to-date digital information, and in complex assembly, we actually would have the ability to customize it so that you can kind of go part by part, or get a much more colorful or intuitive view of the instructions versus just working off of like a single sheet of paper or a single schematic. That can help with, again, both productivity and quality. So we see complex assembly, or specifically like wire harness insertion, as a pretty common use case that we work with. On installation and inspection, similar on the installation side, you can follow step-by-step procedures in a digital manner that lets you traverse the process kind of step by step versus viewing everything in one page. On the inspection side, not only does it allow you to more seamlessly capture the results of the inspection, right? If you were doing it by paper, you would either have to go file that in a filing cabinet or upload it into a software system. If it's already digital and we're connected to your system, as soon as the worker finishes the inspection, it's already in your system and ready to be reviewed. But the other thing that we can do with the smart glasses is not just enable someone to answer questions or complete a visual inspection, but we can allow them to capture information. For example, they could take a photo of the finished quality check so that you have evidence you can review of how everything turned out, or take a video, or add voice notes, things like that. On the after-sales service side, you can have a combination of things. You could have that step-by-step procedure so that maybe a newer mechanic could keep up with the variety of different types of engines or vehicles that they have to work on. But you could also add that live video component that we're going to demo here in a minute. And so if they do get stuck, have a quick way to get them connected to an expert so that they don't have to wait, or so that they don't have to spend time over the phone trying to do it without a line of sight. On the inventory management side, we're not going to talk too much about this today, but if you do have like your own depots that you work with, or if you're a supplier and you have to kit up orders, our solution also has the ability to do vision picking. And so you can basically go out into your warehouses or your distribution centers and use the glasses to receive guidance on where to go in the warehouse, which item to pick. You can scan it, it'll update the inventory, and you can move on. So just a more efficient way to pick your parts or kit them or pick and pack. And then on the maintenance, again, very similar to installation, you have the ability to have step-by-step guidance digitally in the wearable. But again, you have that ability to not just consume the information, but you can give the person the chance to report things or officially log an issue. And systems like ours, the software can actually track the timestamps of all these steps. So it's something that you could feed back into your continuous improvement process. You'll have a nice rich data set of, let's say, preventative maintenance. You'll now have all the specific timestamps of your PM routines, how long they take start to finish, but also how long each step in the process takes. And then finally, like I said, each one of these could then be turned into training to help with knowledge transfer. You could have somebody go out and record a video, a 30-year veteran record a video of an installation or a procedure they're doing by hand to show the right way to do it, and then put that video into your training materials that they view on the smart glasses right before they attempt the procedure. So these are just some more specifics within automotive. if I take a bit of a step back and talk about how we approach it, right? So our software platform is called Skylight, and it is a full AR or connected worker software platform. And so the reason that we take a platform approach is that, as you saw in the previous slide, there are quite a variety of things that you might need help with, that you might want to leverage wearables or mobile devices for. And so we don't take a point solution approach where, hey, we're going to give you a tool to do the live video, or we're going to give you a tool to do the work instructions. We have a full platform upon which we can enable multiple types of these connected worker use cases. So those automotive use cases I mentioned before, we can enable them within Skylight across one common software platform with a common software experience. So you could start with one, like the live video support or like wire harness builds, and then expand as you become more comfortable with the technology. And on the flip side, we take a bit of a hardware agnostic approach. And so we support several types of hardware that you could deploy onto. What we want to do is try and help you fit the right tool for the job with your people. And so if they need to be hands-free and they want to show, have a quick access hands-free to the information, or show their live streaming video from their own point of view, then smart glasses are a great choice. And we support 3 different types of enterprise smart glasses. But we also support tablets and phones. So we have native applications for iOS and Android. And then, of course, on the desktop or on your laptop, you can run Skylight in your browser. So a variety of use cases that we can enable across a variety of hardware targets. So now let's kind of combine the two and look at specifically complex assembly using Skylight. And this is actually a customer use case of ours from Boeing. And they are using Skylight to build wire harnesses. And in this particular case, they are wiring the connector. And historically, they had used, we have a video of this on our website, by the way, but they had used paper originally and then moved it digital, but they were still accessing it on laptop screens. And so the challenge is, going back to Ron's comment about kind of wasted movement, they would have to set their laptop on the workbench a little further down. And so they'd have the connector, or they'd have it on a wall, right? You have the kind of the wall setups, and they'd have to kind of go back and forth to their station, to the laptop, and the information was more of a spreadsheet, more of line items. So it wasn't as intuitive as it could be, and they were wasting motion going back and forth. And so we provided the smart glasses, in their case, Google Glass Enterprise, and our software integrated to their MES system to pull their assembly data, the build data, from their backend system, and then pull it into Skylight and dynamically produce the work instructions that way. And in between those two, we were actually able to reformat the information so that it was a little more intuitive for this situation. So you can see now what they're seeing is a cross-section visual diagram of that connector and all the different pins. And then on the current part number, which is 186A, that's the particular wire that she's threading into the pin. You get a zoomed in view, you get the color and the pin placement. And so she's able to have one hand on the connector, one hand on the wire. She can thread it into the correct placement. And then to move on to the next step, she can use a voice command and say scroll forward, or she can reach up and swipe the side of the wearable. And it's all right there in front of her. She doesn't have to go back and forth to the laptop. And in this case, they were able to drive down errors to effectively 0, but also a side benefit was they got about 25% faster as well. So Johnny's going to show a demo of complex assembly here in a minute. What I thought I would start with from a demo perspective is the Skylight Live, the See What I See video component of the platform. And so this could be really applicable for service and support, whether you're supporting your customers directly, maybe in a reverse capacity where you need to see something your supplier is building for you, maybe a remote witnessing or factory acceptance test. Could also be training. You have an expert in a different location and you need to have their expertise here with your trainee, but either because of COVID or just for budget reasons, you can't fly them in every time. So what I'm about to demo is this tool, this live See What I See video. So we're going to have the ability to have all people on the call with HD audio and video. You can have 2 people on the call and do one-on-one, but you can also have multiple people. And the remote folks who are behind their laptop, they can actually control the camera of the smart glasses user. They can zoom the camera, they can take a snapshot, they can annotate on the snapshot. Again, the whole point is to help drive that assistance and collaboration. So I'm going to dive in here and start with a demo of the live video in Skylight. And then I'm going to kick it over to Johnny, and he's going to walk through a couple of these other use cases that we mentioned, like complex assembly, as well as inspection and kind of general work instructions. So let me move forward, and I'm going to exit out of the PowerPoint. I'll switch over to my browser. And if you can see my Zoom webcam, I'm going to put on my Vuzix M400 smart glasses. So Upskill, our company, we do not make the smart glass hardware, but we partner with smart glass manufacturers like Vuzix, like Google, like RealWear, and we have, our platform has a client application that runs on the smart glasses, and so that's how you would access your work instructions or the live video. So if you are looking at my screen in Zoom, what you're seeing is the Skylight Web Application. And I'm logged in. I'm logged into the web as Adam, the manager, and Adam, the technician, is wearing the smart glasses in this case. And so as I'm logged into the web, I have a few different things I can do. I could scan a barcode to pair my device with my account. So if you needed to log in, this is how you would do it. I could also set up a barcode to pair my device with Wi-Fi really easily. If I'm an admin, I can manage users and groups through the admin console on the left. So Skylight Web Application is kind of where you come to administer the platform or to run your web client to access your instructions or make a video call. And so I already have a web client open. So if I open my second tab here, I have 4 different Skylight applications that have been assigned to Adam, the manager. And you'll see the couple dealing with wire routing and wire insertion. Johnny's also going to show the engine maintenance and inspection. But what I'm looking for is Skylight Live. And so this comes out of the box with Skylight. It's very easy to use. And in this scenario, we have enabled 3 different ways that you can get connected with a colleague or with a vendor or customer in your Skylight domain. If you know who you need to call, then you can just call them directly. And you would basically get a contact list like you would be used to seeing in your phone. And in this case, we've set up a group called VTCI. And there are people that are members of that group that I could call. But if I'm not sure exactly who I need to call, or maybe I'm a new trainee out in the field and I don't know everyone's name yet, you could also initiate a support call. And that will kind of ring everyone on whichever group you choose, and one or more of them can answer and lend you help. Or if they come back later, they can join the call that's already active. So for my glasses, I'm actually going to select the support call option, and it's going to ring out to the VTCI group. So you can see my laptop is now ringing. Now let's say that I was getting a coffee or unavailable or away from my desk. I'll just ignore the call. That's okay. Adam, the technician, has initiated the call, and in my glasses, I'm actually already on the call. And you can see from the web that there's an active call here that I can join as an expert. And I can see that Adam, the technician, is actually still waiting for assistance. And so I will go ahead and click on that and open it up. So what I'm going to do in Zoom is I'm going to stop my Zoom video just to cut one of the video feeds. And I'll go ahead and join the call. And I'm going to mute just so we don't have the audio feedback conflicting with the Zoom call. But now I have my live video connection from the smart glasses to my laptop. And you can see both video feeds are open. So the Adam, the manager, actually has his webcam open. And if Adam, the technician, needed to kind of converse face-to-face, I could view that video in my smart glasses. But we don't need that today. So I'm going to turn off the web video. And we're basically, the idea is that Adam, the technician, is out here working with this coffee thermos, which is going to stand in for our equipment, and he needs some help. And so Adam, the manager, from behind the desk can say, hey, Adam, I see what you're working with out in the field. Let me give you some help. I will zoom your camera in, for example, I can get a nice zoomed in view of that thermos. I can take a snapshot remotely, zooming back out, and then that snapshot becomes available and we can both take a look at it. And so while that snapshot's loading, we actually have our third person join the call, which is Johnny. And so now we have 3 people on the call. But as I pull up this snapshot, I can annotate on it as the remote expert. And so maybe I say, hey, Adam, the technician in the field, you need to focus on the seal here between the lid and the thermos. You don't need to worry about this part here. And in the glasses, I'm seeing that snapshot along with those annotations in real time. And so, you know, if I go back to the live video, then I can say, hey, you told me to avoid this area and you want me to focus here. And so the, you know, one note is that the refresh rate in Zoom is going to be lower than Skylight. And since we're doubled up, we're on a Skylight live call and I'm screen sharing in Zoom, there's going to be some latency and some video kind of degradation here. But regardless, if you are facing poor network conditions in the field, one thing to point out is that when you take snapshots in Skylight, even if there is, you know, if you're currently experiencing some tougher network conditions, when you check out the snapshots, they're still going to be, you know, HD, very high quality, very clear. So behind the scenes, Skylight is constantly checking the available bandwidth on both sides and trying to optimize the video quality and the frame rate for that situation. So you can see now we've kind of stabilized on my connectivity. I'm on a hotspot, and so the video is looking better now. So you get a nice, rich HD video coming in from your counterpart. You can zoom the camera like we showed. You can take snapshots and annotate on them. The other thing that you can do from your remote position is share your screen. So if I had, you know, a application window, or if I wanted to share a schematic or something like that, I could share that out to the smart glasses user and they would see it in real time. The other thing that I could do is actually go the opposite way. So if I'm out in the field and I'm on the smart glasses, I could share my screen with my remote expert counterpart. And so maybe I want to have a combination of their guidance as well as show them the instructions that I'm working with. And so I can open up, you know, some work instructions that I've been given, and they can walk through that with me. So for example, if I'm doing maintenance and I have instructions that I'm working through, like the crankshaft installation, my counterpart, if I'm sharing my screen like this, my counterpart can toggle back and forth between looking at the live video that's coming in and saying, okay, I can see what you're doing. I can see what you're looking at. Now let me look at what step you're on in the instructions and guide you through like what this is actually saying. So you can have that combination of viewing the actual materials that your counterpart is seeing on their glasses and then going back and seeing what they're doing in the real world. So this was just a quick demo of what this looks like using Skylight. So hopefully you can see or start thinking about different ways that it might be useful in that remote assistance standpoint or remote training, that type of thing. So again, we'll take questions at the end. Happy to answer more questions about this technology or the features, and we'll take it from there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hang up this call, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we'll let Johnny take over and perform the next demo.
Great, thanks, Adam. Let me go ahead and share my screen now. All right, great. Let me move this out of the way. All right, so the next demo that we're going to showcase today is a sort of general demo that talks about how you can leverage wearable devices to consume workflows. These workflows can be, complex assembly. They can be wire harness assembly, anything that guides the user through step-by-step instructions. On my screen, I'm going to showcase sort of two views of the same workflow. Here on the right-hand side is a box that is mirroring the glasses that I'm wearing right now. These are the Google Glass Enterprise Edition 2 glasses. They are safety rated. That's why you see the little mesh sides there. And to the left of that, you have a view of what the application looks like on the web. And that's also going to be pretty indicative of how the application is going to look on a mobile device. The mobile device and the web is going to be sort of a vertical layout. On the glasses, it's going to be more of a horizontal layout, again, based on the form factor we're working with. So the demo I'm going to start with is one for engine maintenance and inspection. And I'm going to highlight some of the capabilities using touch. In this case, the touchpad on the Google Glass here is on the right-hand side. And also I'm going to highlight the ability to sort of navigate through all of this using voice. So I'm going to start with voice so you can see how it looks and feels. I'm going to stop in the middle so that the demo doesn't itself cause issues with the voice engine. So when we talk about a voice sort of command and control capability within Skylight, it means to interact with the application when you need to navigate inside the application. We are not always listening, and so you have to instruct Skylight to start listening for commands. And I'm going to go ahead and do that, and you'll see a trigger here on the top left with a new blue microphone icon that tells me the wearer that the device is now listening to my voice commands. Hey, Skylight, engine maintenance and inspection. Stop listening. I'm just going to pause here to showcase what this workflow is going to entail. So as a user that's going to perform this inspection and maintenance workflow, I have the ability to, one, start a new workflow. So this can be based off a template that says, every day you want to go in and inspect for these items, or you have multiple individuals on a single team that want to perform their own workflows or inspections. And each of those individuals would be able to start their own workflow and work on different parts of the same workflow. And if I wanted to, I can actually scroll forward and see previous inspections or maintenance checks that were performed. And in this case, I have one that was done earlier today, and it shows that I've done 4 out of the 7 steps. So if I wanted to, I can jump into that workflow and finish that off. But for the purposes of the demo, I'm going to go ahead and start a new workflow. So I'm going to go back over here. Hey, Skylight, start a new workflow. Scroll forward, select center, scroll forward, stop listening. And here is really the start of the workflow. And in this case, this is a work order 04645. And I've got a few things I can do on the glasses here, right? If I scroll forward now with my touchpad, I can look at the maintenance log. I can perform the actual engine inspection, and then I can actually look at the maintenance instructions. So if I go back to maintenance log, I'm going to go ahead and select that. I get a record of what has been done, when, and by whom. And theoretically, all this data is coming from your backend system that acts as the system of record. So I can quickly review all the work that was done to make sure that the work that I'm going to do now doesn't contradict, or if it's going to supplement it, I know what has actually been done in the past. Then I'll go ahead and go back and actually go into engine inspection. And at this point, I'm going to pause here a second and actually switch over to the web portion. And if I go into the same workflow on the web here, I'll see that the work session that I'm performing right now is actually listed here as 0 out of 7 steps. And I can tell based on the timestamp as well as the date. So if I go in there, you can see what it looks like on the web. And again, this is what it's going to look like on a mobile device. And I'm going to go ahead and select engine inspection. And I'm going to keep it here on the left-hand side to showcase what maybe a supervisor could view at the same time as the individual performing the inspection and maintenance within the workflow itself. So here, the first step of the inspection is to check for cracks and the looseness of the engine to the actual mount itself. So if I wanted to, it's going to actually be a multiple choice selection. I can view my choices on the glasses. I can select yes, select no, or not applicable. I'm going to go ahead and select yes. When I select yes, it actually marks that step as done. And here on the left-hand side, you also notice that the selection appeared as selecting yes, and that step was completed in real time. Now I can scroll forward for the visual evidence of excessive oil leaks. And again, I'll go ahead and select pass. And it was updated here on the left in real time. And then I can look at whether the everything was properly torqued. And I'll go ahead and just select pass. And again, updated in real time on the left. And then if I wanted to, I can capture notes. So two ways of capturing notes with the glasses using either a video video recording, or if it is a photo I wanted to capture, I can select capture notes. Oops, let me go ahead and snooze that. Sorry about that. I'm going to go ahead and capture a video with my glasses. And if I take a look at the part, I can say, everything looks okay. And I can speak to during the video, so I can reference that at a later point, and I can go ahead and start and stop recording. So I've got one video that was captured, and then if I wanted to capture a photo, I'll go ahead and capture the photo. And here on the left-hand side, the data that I actually collected is going to be available if I was a supervisor. In this case, as a normal user, I wouldn't necessarily see it, but I'll show you what that view looks like from a supervisor's perspective. Another item I wanted to capture or showcase, depending on the type of device you're using, you may actually be able to leverage your voice to actually capture certain parts of the process. So if I go over to recording the step that records the resistance, if I go ahead and select that, 16, what it did there was actually use the voice engine that's built into the Google Glass device to record, what I said as 16 and input that as a number, a numeric input into this specific step. And this specific step actually requires a numeric input. And so we can actually do some sort of validation along the way in real time. And I'll note that the transcription that the glasses uses is actually not using anything out in the cloud. It's actually all on device. So in the cases where you are disconnected from Wi-Fi, et cetera, the glasses will still work and the transcription can still happen. So that is the workflow capability. I am then going to switch over to the wire insertion use case. And let me do the same here. So we have two scenarios here that we can highlight. I'm only going to touch on one of them for time purposes. We have the ability to perform wire routing, and routing is taking a single wire and building a harness out of it by routing the wire through a number of pegs on a form board. The other one I also have is wire insertion, and wire insertion is actually whether it's done inside the body of a piece of equipment or on the form board itself, is actually placing the wire into the connectors themselves. So I'm going to go inside wire insertion. And in this case, the concept is you want to scan to start the body of work, right? And that body of work is going to be to develop a single harness. So I'm going to go ahead and scan, but let me go ahead and bring up a QR code. So I'm going to scan for a harness. So it was pretty quick. Hopefully you caught that. It's going to retrieve the harness. It says harness 123 has now been assigned. I'm now going into the harness 123 workflow. And here I've got one connector that I'm working on as part of that harness. So 2144208. I'll go inside there. And here it also, again, tells me sort of like a high level summary of the part number I'm going to be working on. If I scroll forward, again, I can check out notes if there are any for this specific connector. I can check out the tools that I'll need to work on this specific connector. If my process includes stripping and crimping, I can check out the stripping tool as well as the strip length needed, or the crimp tool and the crimp setting. And then the meat of the work is going to be done inside the wire insertion. So if I go inside wire insertions, you'll see a high level view of the connector. Sometimes, you have pins inside the connector that won't be used. There's different terminology depending on the industry you're working with. Seal plugs is the name for them. Those are indicated by the X's that you see in those circles. And this is really to either verify that the body of work was done previously and all the correct seal plugs were actually plugged, or that if you're going to be the one doing it, you'd be able to actually perform this step as well. And if I scroll forward now, I can begin my work on actually inserting wires into the connector. This is a screen that allows me to know that wires number 1 and 2 go into cavity 15 and 16 on the connector. I'll plug that in, go to the next one. This is a single wire number 3 that goes in cavity number 17. I'll plug that in. And I'll go ahead with the rest of the wires. We can actually put in logic as part of this application that says either go inside to the outside or outside in, or if it's sort of up to the user to perform that body of work, because maybe they're doing it at the same time as routing. They can do a random search of the wire number. So they pick wire number 4 out of a bundle, and they can jump to this specific graphic that tells them to put it into cavity number 18. So that's the wire harness or the pin insertion workflow, which is a bit more specific in the larger scheme of assembly workflows. I wanted to showcase both of those for you all today. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and end the demos and switch back over to slides to carry on. Let me go ahead and now present. So now we wanted to highlight a couple of case studies that we've done in the past. The first one here is a tier 1 auto supplier who had a specific challenge around employee turnover in a plant in Mexico. And really to highlight the solution, what they wanted to do ultimately in terms of metrics was reduce the amount of time it took a new worker to become as efficient as somebody that had already been there for 3 or 4 weeks. And they did that by developing a workflow on the glasses that, again, presented them. In this case, it was the routing workflow. It presented to them, the start of where the wire comes in from on the form board and the end connector that it would actually go into. And with that, those 2 pieces of information, they were able to visualize on the form board where that wire was supposed to go. And so what this does is it takes away the burden of trying to memorize various configurations of the same harness for different parts, different suppliers, et cetera. And instead, a worker that has gone through sort of like basic training on connecting pins and laying out the harness, they can take the workflow on the glasses and get introduced to a brand new product. And ultimately, that actually reduced the amount of time for ramp up by 35%. And then on top of that, we also looked at the quality of work for that new individual. And that actually ended up being a 38% increase in first-time quality for new workers that were coming on to the production floor right after training. In addition to first-time quality, if you look at the amount of rework that sometimes have to be done on these harnesses, again, when you were looking at those new individuals coming on board, we saw a 15% reduction in rework. And then the overall efficiency of the workforce was increased by 21%. And again, this was specific to a line for routing wire harnesses. We also did another use case with the same customer that was similar in nature, except instead of the individual wearing the glasses and showing the workflow, The product itself was actually moving on a conveyor belt. And so in that case, it was actually more efficient to use a statically mounted tablet to showcase the same information, because then the user itself, like, they were not moving, right? And so you didn't necessarily need to be wearing the glasses to take advantage of the data that we were presenting them. And that really highlights the different modalities that we can support, whether it is a person wearing the glasses or a person stationed at one spot, leveraging a tablet to do the same work. The second case study I wanted to highlight is one around final cab inspection. Is a supplier in North Carolina. And in this case, it wasn't necessarily an efficiency gain that they were really looking to tackle. What they wanted to do is actually take a look at the manual paper processes they had in place to perform inspections, because they wanted to capture data around that process. So normally, this is an individual or a set of individuals performing inspections 8 to 10 hours a day. And they had paper to do so, right? They would print out the same inspection report every morning for every inspection. They would take a pencil, pen, they would mark up the inspection report. After they were done with it, they would maybe place that in a pile of inspection reports at the end of the day. Those might get scanned, they might get archived. What they didn't have really is the visibility into real-time data. And so what our solution brought to the table was, again, the ability for that inspection to be done in real time, and the visibility of that inspection in real time to be provided to supervisors and other individuals who would potentially benefit from knowing if a cab had failed inspection. And so what our platform would do, as inspection was happening in real time, we would send out email alerts along the way. Every night we would send out summaries of the inspections that were performed. And then those results were always available as part of our solution. And so if they wanted to go back and look at inspection results from a few days ago, or they wanted to track trends in the inspection, whether it is the speed of inspections or specific issues that were found during inspections, they would be able to leverage dashboards that they had already built to retrieve that data and actually act upon it much quicker than the paper process they had in place before. And so both of those use cases ultimately talk about workforce transformation. So the current process may include, just training and allowing users to go onto the production line and relying on memory of what they did in training, or a schematic that's printed out for them, and they have to reference on and off throughout the day to perform their work. And what that may lead to is a large gap between a knowledgeable or very experienced individual versus a brand new individual on the production line in terms of the best and worst performing employee. And information is actually rarely provided to the new individuals or the experienced individuals that is current, and sometimes that adds to the problem where they don't have access to the information they really need to perform the body of work they're doing that day. But sometimes there's also no way for those individuals to actually tell anyone that, right? There's no feedback loop from the individual on the production floor to those individuals who are creating the standard operating procedures or their supervisors sometimes when there are issues actually happening in real time. And that ultimately leads to that tribal knowledge of how to fix certain issues or how to inspect certain things being sort of inside a specific individual and not being shared across the line and other folks who are experiencing the same problems. And so if you look at the way we can change that to better inform individuals and sort of supplement what they're currently doing with their skills, using glasses, you can look at information flows that actually go in both directions, right? You can have work procedures being presented to the user wearing the device, as well as capture data from the individual and send that back to your system of record for future reference. One of the use cases we've worked with in the past around knowledge capture is giving the glasses to really experienced individuals who have been working there for a long period of time, that know the work and may not necessarily reference the standard operating procedure because they really know how to perform the work in a manner that's more efficient than the standard operating procedure. And we put the glasses on those individuals, and we said, whenever you do this in sort of inspection, go ahead and record what you're doing. And what that enabled the company to do is create this repository of videos generated by experienced individuals that would then be leveraged by new technicians. And when they face the same problem, they'd be able to pull up that video and have a first-person perspective of how to actually resolve that issue. And so now you have the real-time interaction between the data that is available as well as the work that is actually being performed without needing to stop work or without needing to call a supervisor over or without needing additional individuals coaching that person once they begin production work. And so what this means is the individual can work with the systems that are in place to sort of supplement their power to either work faster, more safely, more reliably, et cetera, so that any individual is not sort of tied to a body of work, but they can actually be used across the line, whether it is for insertion, whether it's for routing, et cetera. And so the individual becomes reconfigurable, right? A person that was doing routing one day, assuming they have the skills, they can do insertion the next day and vice versa. And so ultimately we create a system that actually learns and then can leverage what it learned to spread that knowledge across the workforce. And so in terms of how do we go about doing this, right? And so we wanted to touch on a few bullet points that talk to how you go about getting started. And so in terms of best practices, what we've seen across the board, the first thing you want to focus on is identify the use case that involves minimal changes to the existing processes. And also something that can be evaluated in a short period of time. When you say, or when I say, identify something that requires few changes to the workflow, this really means try not to disturb the workforce by introducing something that's going to add more time to what they're already doing. If their work is really time dependent, a lot of users would really hesitate to put on these glasses and try something new. And so what you want to do is make sure that when you introduce these glasses, you are not adding a body of work in addition to what they're already doing. And at the same time, when you want to evaluate the impact of the glasses, you don't necessarily want to extend the time frame to do that for 5 months, 6 months, et cetera. You want to be able to actually identify a key pain point that can be that metric can be sort of captured for within a short period of time, so that one, you understand sort of best practices of that workflow. You can tweak and adjust and then expand to other users so that business leaders can start tracking real production metrics versus looking at data that was simulated, for example. We've run through many simulations in the past, and a lot of times, business leaders will come back to us and like, this is a simulation, but we need more data. We need more data. And ultimately what works best is to identify those key points in production, let it be used in production. That way you can compare apples to apples when you're looking at past performance with a performance using the glasses. The third bullet point really talks about infrastructure and data. So the glasses do require Wi-Fi to initially sync data, but they don't require Wi-Fi for actually walking through the workflow. You can be offline entirely for that process, but if you want to take advantage of the Skylight Live capability where you have that remote reach back support, that is something that does require consistent and readily available Wi-Fi. And that may not be available across the entire factory floor. And so it is something that you want to consider to assess whether that capability is something that can be handled given your network constraints or access points inside the factory. And then when we talk about data, we always start the conversation with customers around What does your current data look like? Is it on paper? Is it in Word documents? Are those Word documents or PDFs stored somewhere that a machine process can access? Because ultimately what we need to understand is how can we transform the data that you currently have into data that is consumable on whether it's wearable devices or tablets without reducing the reliability of the data or introducing elements of the data that make it not worthwhile to convert, right? And so we look for elements in systems that can be chunked up. So when you have a work order that is broken down into steps, and each individual step is sort of consumable in a short period of time, that's sort of the ideal scenario. But of course, we understand that's not always the case. A lot of these work instructions were not written in a manner to assume that they're going to be consumed on a wearable device. And so what we would do is to work with you to understand how can we sort of evaluate the transformation of that data into something that can be consumable and what the impact would be across the board. And so we have tools in place that let you try different scenarios of whether it's importing data from a spreadsheet, importing data from a Word document or a PDF file, assuming that you can gain some knowledge from that process to then fuel your digitization of that data in something that's more consumable for the glasses. And last but not least, you definitely want to engage IT early on in the process. There are different challenges when it comes to deploying these glasses, whether it is at a single factory, in a single, let's say, province, multiple factories across a province, multiple factories across a country, multiple factories across the globe. You know, these devices, they don't necessarily come with all the security controls that your modern mobile device or tablet leverages. So you do want to think about how you would manage the devices, whether it's through a mobile device management solution, if it's local to one specific area, one specific factory. You may have expertise at that factory to manage the devices. You'd want to think about, you know, storage, how you check in and check out the devices, security policies, you know, around how long should, let's say, these devices continue to be connected before you force somebody to log out, you know, how much data you want to store on these devices so that people can work offline. And then when we really talk about post-deployment, you know, who's going to support these users when there are issues with the devices? Who's going to support them when there are issues with the network? And if you look at, you know, who needs to be involved in this process, it's everyone from potential, you know, desktop support, network support, and if there's a different group for device support, all those individuals would need to be involved. And it's always good to bring those individuals early on in the process so they know what's coming. They understand the devices, they understand the network, they understand the application to get ready for a pilot or a rollout from a pilot. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and sort of end sort of the slides that we have. We're going to jump into the Q&A session, but, you know, sort of transitioning from how to get started. We do have two ways to get really quickly started on trying out our solution. We have a developer edition that is free to sign up. So any individual can sign up for that and get access to Skylight really quickly. And we also actually have a hackathon if anyone is interested in taking part, running December 14th through the 20th. Both URLs will point you to more information about each. And I guess now I will hand it back over to Ron for the Q&A section.
Excellent. Thanks, Johnny and Adam. That was really informative. If you do have questions, if you could put them through on the Q&A feature of Zoom, and we'll get to the questions. We'll pose them to Johnny and Jessica and Adam. A couple of questions have come through already. Brian McKinnon is asking, in the case of web connectable tools, DeSoder is a company that makes tools that can connect to the web. and can feed back information in regards to torques or whatever performance characteristics and stuff like that. Does your platform have the ability to be able to do a two-way communication of, yes, you've achieved that torque kind of thing from information coming from the tool?
Yeah, I can I can start, and then maybe Johnny, you can supplement my answer. So we have done we have connected to different types of smart tools. So we have done a project in the past with GE. They were using an Atlas Copco smart wrench. So we can do it a couple of different ways. The easiest way, a lot of these smart tools simply have a Bluetooth chipset built in that takes the measured value and broadcasts it to a paired device over Bluetooth. So we've done that with a variety of different accessories, smart wrench, laser measurement devices, and things like ring scanners. So we can do it that way. If they are more sophisticated and they use like a WebSocket, or they produce information or publish it to like to the web or the Wi-Fi, we can do that as well. We would just write some extension code to connect with it that way. But yeah, we've done that in the past. Atlas Copco and Snap-on would be two that we've tried specifically.
Okay.
Johnny, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, the Snap-on torque wrench actually has basically built-in Bluetooth protocol that would allow us to actually communicate two-way. So one of the things for the use cases that we did in the past for the Snap-on tool was, one, for the ability to retrieve the torque value off of the tool itself, but the APIs actually allowed us to set the torque values as well. So when a user would go to, let's say, to step number 3 in the workflow, and you had to program to 50 foot-pounds, we would be able to do so over Bluetooth from the glasses to program the torque wrench to set it to 50 foot-pounds. And then as a user would actually perform the torque, it would beep, and then you'd be able to retrieve the value off of that to, again, make sure that it's the right value for the right step.
Okay. Okay. So here's the big question, the $25 question, is if I had a service organization that had a couple of people, let's say 2 people working remotely that I wanted to give glasses to, and I had a desktop application in a remote location that I wanted to be able to connect with these 2 people through Skylight to just do inspections and provide guidance and push information back and forth and that kind of thing. What kind of magnitude of money would it cost to get started?
You're saying, Ron, just a couple of people using a couple of pairs of smart glasses for live calling?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, it's not a large amount of money. So I'll explain a couple of different pieces here. We're a software provider, so you would either use existing hardware like your phones or tablets, or you would purchase smart glasses. And these devices are in the range of like $1,200 to $2,000 to $2,500, depending on the model. So you have a few $1,000s if you want to buy some smart glasses. From the Skylight point of view, we can do like the Boeing projects, for example. We can do a like bespoke proof of value pilot. If we need to do some custom software development or some integration on the front end, we can do that, and we would price and scope that based on requirements. It'd be like a kind of a services project or change management that we would deliver. If we're talking about your scenario, Ron, of something that's out of the box and you just need a couple of licenses, that's our overall long-term business model is SaaS. It's licenses per user per year. And so we have a couple of different options. Our full licenses are on the range of $150 a month per user. But the calling, we have a subset that's calling only, and it's only $30 a month per user. And so you just be, for 2 users, about $720 a year for 2 users, or you might need a couple more on the flip side. So call it $1,000 to $2,000 for a handful of calling users, or a few thousand if you wanted a handful of kind of all access users, and then a couple of thousand or 3,000 or 4,000 for the devices. So you can get started for a few $1,000s if you're wanting to kind of do something quick and use it out of the box.
And that was the thing that actually surprised me about this, is just how attainable this technology is right now. Like when I first started doing some research into it, I figured it would be, you know, tens of thousands of users, and then really it's you know, it's quite attainable by just about any manufacturer if you're going to go for just simple connectivity. Blair Hamilton is asking if you've had any instances where EMI, RFI, those kinds of things have been a problem with connectivity of the glasses. Now, Johnny, you were talking that you don't necessarily need to have a Wi-Fi connection all the time, but when you do, has there been applications where that's been a problem?
Yeah, I can give 2 examples. The question specifically, you know, talks about airfield and military installations. So we've actually done work on an airfield for Boeing. And to answer the question, so when you're doing the remote assistance capability or leveraging that, you will require some sort of connection. So the devices connect to Wi-Fi. And if you have a mobile solution, of course, you can leverage the cell connectivity of it. But at the end of the day, yeah, it will require some sort of connectivity back to the internet. We had gone through the processes required to get those approved. So we didn't come across any interference per se, but we did have to go through a set of, you know, security reviews, et cetera, to make sure that the device would work in those areas. A second example is actually for a pharmaceutical company that had, you know, like these large machines emitting, you know, various electromagnetic signals, right? And there are some cases where like those signals are just going to drown out any sort of like Wi-Fi that you'll be able to access. And so in those cases, you know, you may not be able to leverage the Skylight Live capability. But again, you would still be able to leverage the workflows because that can be, you know, that can be done offline. And in those scenarios, it's just, you know, part of the environment that we have to work with, right? There will always be some cases where either for security purposes or because of other electromagnetic signals, it may just not work.
Excellent, thank you, thank you. Blair's also asking, he says, impressive software, and thanks for demoing, noting the reliance on digital assets in order for the software to operate. Have you addressed challenges in supporting older assets for which digital content is not available? And maybe you've got a war story you can share with us of a company that was maybe working out of a filing cabinet and moved to, you know, a technology like yours.
Yeah, I have a general answer, and then I can give a specific answer. So in general, the new version of Skylight, we didn't really get into details on this webinar of kind of like our new version versus previous, but with the new version that we released about 3 months ago and the demos that Johnny showed and I showed, we have made it easier to get started, even if your materials are literal paper. So we have a utility that pairs with one of our quick start apps that allows you to customize or curate an Excel spreadsheet. And I think Johnny mentioned this, but you can basically, if you can get it into Excel, then you can get it into Skylight. And so for most people, you know, if it's purely paper, somehow it's got to get into the computer. But what we find is that even if it's paper, a lot of times there's some, you know, there's some origin of it in Word or Excel or some format like that. And so getting started, we can get you up and running, or you can get yourself up and running with this kind of import capability that makes it very easy to work with. I think long-term, what we would want to do is discuss a strategy for not just making that content, not just digitizing the content if it's not already digital, but really like Johnny mentioned, it's more about thinking about a management strategy for the data, whether that's making it formatted or structured so that it can be ingested in an automated way, or moving it into a repository that can also control the documents and things like that. So we do have a way to get you started pretty easily if your material is not already managed that way. But long term, it's going to be easier to scale if you can get your instructions into kind of a regulated or standard format in some kind of database or system.
Excellent.
And the specific story that second use case that Johnny mentioned, the paper, he mentioned they were using paper, which they were, but what they were using is called a traveler. And if any of you build cabs or similar assemblies for vehicles, you may have this. And it's called a traveler because the paper document travels with the cab as it traverses and gets produced on the manufacturing line. But the traveler is printed from a simple database, right? It's basically an order that the customer orders from our customer, their cab supplier, and it has these different options that they need. So it's printed and it travels with the cab, and each person along the manufacturing line looks at it and goes, okay, I need to add a hole here, or I need to weld here. So what we did for the digital version is we just hooked into that order in their database. And so they still printed it, but instead of doing the inspection on paper, they did the inspection on their iPad. And so they had a combo of the physical paper traveler so that the techs that didn't have the iPad could quickly look at it. But like Johnny mentioned, the benefit was that the inspector at the very end of the line, as they're making updates, those are being digitally pushed. And if something, if they create an infraction, or if there's an item, a feature or an option that's there that's not supposed to be, or the flip side, if there's not something there that is, an alert can go out to like the quality managers or the manufacturing managers, and then they can run into the plant and help make a fix. So that's one specific example where even though they were working from paper, we were still able to hook into the source material and provide a combined approach.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Blair's also got an add-on question, which is kind of the reverse of one of his other questions. Is it possible to use the glasses to create digital content that can be referenced in future work instructions? And I think, Johnny, you had mentioned that it's, by using the video feature, or Adam, I'm not sure, can't remember which one, but you can use the video feature to create the content to be able to embed in future in future work instructions, correct?
Yeah, so you can we have a application builder tool that's part of the platform that's web-based, and you can use that to create like workflows. You could combine that with the Excel tool if you wanted to create workflows. I will say that we want to help you create and get your applications going. I would say at a macro level, our intent with Skylight is not necessarily to be the system of record. And so while you can use it to create materials and work them into your workflow, if you're asking about the wiring diagrams specifically, for those, we actually, Johnny created that. We have a template, but then we can use outside tools. So it's probably a combination of the two. So it kind of goes back to my original answer, which is, yeah, you can definitely create these within Skylight, but we probably want to be populating or pulling the live data from an outside system for some of this.
Okay, great. And none of this data that is referenced or created leaves the organization, right? You guys are just providing the bridge between the data and the glasses. There's nothing that ends up on Upskill servers or those sorts of things, right?
Yeah, it's really up to you as the customer. So Skylight is running in our SaaS cloud. And so that's where, again, we go back to if we're pulling data in from your system of record, it's populated into the glasses within Skylight. It's encrypted, it's cached there while the person is using it. But if you're, if they're making selections, if they're taking measurements, if they're snapping pictures, and we're pushing that back into your system, then no, it won't sit in your Skylight domain in our cloud servers. It'll go back to your servers. Now, if we are not integrated and you're okay with it resting in your Skylight domain, it can do that, but you have access to that, we would not. So,
okay.
And everything's encrypted in transit and at rest.
And I'm sure that that's a big question for a lot of companies out there, is where does the data flow and who has access to it? We have Brad Thidrickson is asking, have there been any use cases with smart glasses in welding shops for loading large fixtures with welding helmets and background noise and all that? Do you have any stories you can tell us?
Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know that we've done, this is top of mind. I had a call yesterday with an aerospace supplier that asked specifically about welding. So I don't know that we've done that yet. What it would come down to is if you want to use the glasses to view the information, a couple of them would actually be able to fit under the welding hood. But if you're wanting to also use the camera, then that hood is going to block the camera. So you would either need to wear it on some kind of strap that goes over the welding helmet, or you'd wear it under the helmet. You just wouldn't be able to broadcast your camera. So it's possible. In that situation, depending on what you're trying to do, if it's viewing instructions, you could use a lower profile device like Google Glass and just wear it under the helmet to view your guide. If you're wanting it to broadcast, it might be better to use like a tablet on a fixed stand to provide the video or something like that.
Yep, makes sense.
So
good stuff. Good stuff. Marizo is asking, is it possible to use this tool to get access to a web-based IT tool managing task card inventory and mark the task as complete directly into the IT web-based tool?
Johnny, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, one thing we didn't really touch upon is how we would go about doing an integration, just as the question asked. So we have this concept called a Skylight Extension, and that extension is really sort of like a medium between Skylight services and your backend system. So what the Skylight Extension would do, it can automate the creation of workflows on the Skylight side, but it can also talk to your system. So what it would potentially do, let's say, in an imaginary world where you've got Skylight integrated, when a user logs onto their glasses, the Skylight extension is going to receive the event saying the user logged in. It's going to make a query to your tasking system and see how many tasks are assigned to that individual. Then it would create a workflow for each one of those tasks. And then the user on the glasses, once they work on a task and mark it as complete, the extension would receive that event, and then it would tell your system, your tasking system, to mark that as complete. So it's feasible, but it will depend on the interface to that system if it's allowed to, if we can actually perform that body of work, or if we have to, do something a little bit more, creative to make that happen. But we do have APIs that would allow you to integrate with external tools, whether it's a tasking tool, an MES system, or a ticketing system for help desk, where we can integrate the live calls along with that ticketing capability.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So the last question I have here: can Skylight be offered as a non-prem solution?
Yes. Yeah. So I should have mentioned that before. Great question, Blair. I've been talking about the cloud. That's kind of our default. We have we use AWS as our kind of default infrastructure, and it allows us to spin up a domain for you to get started. Like Johnny mentioned, with Dev Edition, you can get an account very quickly within a couple of days. So most of our customers will start leveraging our existing SaaS cloud infrastructure because it is faster and a lower lift for both parties. But we are able to deploy Skylight on-premise physically. If you have servers you would need to deploy on-prem at your site, so we can do that. We can also do a private cloud or VPC. So we've done that with multiple customers. I will say that that changes a few different things that we can talk with you individually about. So we just have to scope it and talk through the use case. And the reason that a lot of customers start with the cloud is because of, like we said before, if you're starting with one use case or starting small and just trying to prove one, a lot of times it might make more sense to just roll with the cloud, so you can get started smaller and less expensive and less effort on your side. And then assuming that it works out and you want to expand it, then we can look at moving everything on-premise or into a VPC,
Excellent.
a private cloud.
So, hey, we've reached the bottom of the hour here. And one last question, Jessica, if people have questions about, hey, I'm doing this, is Skylight the right thing for me? Can Upskill help me? How do they what's the right way to contact you guys in order to start a conversation?
Yeah, I mean, the best way is to go on to our website, and there's a couple different avenues there to connect with us, and also give you the ability to just kind of check out some more information about Skylight as well. Or you can reach out to one of us directly. We've put our contact information on the last slide, but then also the easiest way to reach us is just go to info@upskill.io, and it'll email our entire team here, and we'll be happy to answer any additional questions you have.
That's awesome. Well, hey, on behalf of all the companies that have participated here today, we thank you for your presentation. And like I said earlier, I'm pleasantly surprised at how accessible this technology is. And again, thanks for your time. And we'll be posting this webinar on our YouTube channel later today. And thanks again.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, thank you for
Cheers,
having
everyone.
us.
All right, take care.
Yep, have a great day.